Hi there, welcome back to Mike Reads the World, where today I'll be discussing Wise Blood by Flannery O'Connor, which is part of this Collected Works Library of America edition. Inspired by all things by playing a video game called Norco, which had these Southern Gothic aesthetics and influences. And while I was playing, I couldn't help thinking, like, this game, it just didn't need these like sci-fi and surreal elements where it went. The aesthetic of this like rundown New Orleans town dominated by a corporation could have been set anywhere in modern day America with completely realist elements, and there's some other like psychological things going on that I felt like it didn't need to get as grandiose with the sci-fi and surreal as it did. And so I was thinking, well, maybe what I'm looking for here is really just some good old Southern Gothic literature, but I didn't know what that meant. And so I went to the internet and found, well, I've already read some of what's been influenced by it. Cormac McCarthy and William Faulkner I've attempted but haven't actually finished one of his books. So who else is there? Okay, Flannery O'Connor. I've definitely heard that name before, and I knew that my bookstore had this Library of America edition, so I went there and bought it and just flew through Wise Blood. I have not been this inspired by a piece of fiction, especially from an American author, in like a long time, I feel like. Maybe it hasn't been that long, but it feels like it's been a lot of books since a work of just straight up, typical fiction, I guess you would say, has inspired me in this way. And I'll get into all of that. But I will say, if just a Southern Gothic book that really inspired me, like none has in a long time, sounds great to you and you know something about Flannery O'Connor, just go read it before you listen to anything I say about it. I think it's a great book to just go in knowing little about what happens. But I will give a short summary here for those who don't know. There's a young World War II veteran. I get the sense he's in his mid-20s, maybe it even says that. That's what I'm imagining. His name is Hazel Motes. He comes back to Tennessee to find his home abandoned. He can't find his family, nobody, and so he drives off to another city. He takes a train to another city. He doesn't have a car yet, but he will get one. And this is in the late 40s, I gather, because of, just came back from World War II. So I take the late 1940s, and he is inspired one day when he sees a preacher and a blind preacher with his daughter trying to spread the word of Jesus and asking for money near a potato peeler, a guy who's selling potato peelers, and it's just, this mundane situation. But then Hazel Motes is like somehow inspired to start his own church without Christ, is what he says it. So in the way he puts it is, being redeemed means that you will never be at peace. If you need to be redeemed, you will never be at peace. And so he's trying to spread he's trying to create a church out of basically not having an element of what all the churches around him have. And in this moment, he also meets a younger man of 18, or between boy and manhood, named Enoch. And Enoch is a little bit different. While Hazel Motes is inspired by this ideal, Enoch is moved by what he calls wise blood, an intuition. This wise blood, the name of the story or short novel, I guess we'll call it. It's not long. The blind preacher and his daughter Sabbath, they will become important characters for other reasons. I'm not going to be trying not to be spoiling, I guess, some of the major plot points. But I will say that Wise Blood doesn't need a shocking ending to leave its mark, because it finds our lunacy in the little things, the commonplaces, city parks, car lots. Very like the craziness is all found in this really just slice of life. But somehow also quick-moving, like fast-paced short novel or novella, whatever you want to call it. But the themes I want to talk about here are mainly alienation and modern capitalism, and specifically separate. So I mention them together, but we'll be talking about them separately. The alienation we find right from this idea of the abandoned home that Hazel Motes comes back to. And this, in a way, kind of comes full circle at the end of the story when he leaves the city in which he spends most of Wise Blood, where he sees all the signs of Jesus saves, and he realizes towns are all the same in America. And another way we get alienation is alienation from history. There's a specific mummified person, like a shrunken mummified person in a museum at the center of the city park where Enoch works, that ends up becoming a big part of the plot, but is completely divorced from the actual history that it comes from, and is trying to be made into a new symbol here to replace that of Jesus. I guess that's kind of a spoiler. I don't know how much that gives away, but many scenes are about, to switch over to modern capitalism, many scenes are about buying things, right? So right in the beginning, there's Hazel Motes trying to buy a car with his $50 that he has on him. There's Enoch buying his malt shakes in several different places. Then where these two things kind of come together is in, I think, the misguided dreams that are actually at the core of this. Enoch later in the story, as this 18-year-old working at a city zoo, what future does he have ahead of him? He's studying at the academy. What he wants, he says in one scene, is to be one of those guys in the insurance commercials, and then also he's thinking of this, and this is a disease of mind I feel like we have in America, that like you're not a worthwhile person unless you are the best at something. And he says something to that effect, like he wants to be the best that can be, and he's somehow strangely inspired by these films that he goes to, and this is driven by the media. And so there's I feel like there's all this symbolism in here that gets at the toxic American dream, not of owning a home or of whatever people think it is, and owning your car, which of course Hazel Motes actually displays by buying a car, and speaks of the car as like your ticket to freedom in many parts of the book. But the American dream, in the sense of like being the greatest at something, this conqueror mentality. And there's another scene that, without saying too much, with a gorilla suit that I feel also symbolizes how the media kind of makes us take on, like pushes us into these ridiculous roles in these attempts to become something like that. And finally, dealing directly with this theme of religion, because of course Hazel Motes is trying to create this church without Christ. There's a mysterious man who appears at one point in the book as Hazel is trying to gain followers for this church, and this mysterious man starts saying, this Hazel, he changed my life, and I'm his first convert, basically. And then he's trying to be like the John the Baptist or something to Hazel Motes. I don't know. He's like starting to tell people, oh, pay $1 and so on for your salvation and whatever, and he's taking this in a direction that Hazel definitely doesn't want, because Hazel is trying to give the truth for free. He's trying to give people the truth for free, that they don't need this religion to be saved, to be who they are. And it's just a very fundamental truth that I guess I agree with on some level, but we realize in Wise Blood that people don't want truth. No one converts. They'd rather invest in a lie that speaks what they want to or must believe to maintain this insane idea of normality we've created in America. And that's where this sense that religion in America isn't spirituality, okay? It's tribalism, marketing, and performance. And that is that being divorced from history that is symbolized, it gives me the sense, and I feel this just living here today, that there is no actual religion in America anymore. It's tribalism, marketing, and performance. And when I think of history and what I've read about history, and I know I may be oversimplifying to some extent, but I get this feeling when I look at history that our ancestors, before modernity, religion was about understanding truth, always, to some, like primarily, or one could say even to some extent. And like, this is what I feel from looking at the Catholic and Arab scholars of the Middle Ages, for example, or even looking at ancient empires and things like that. And they didn't have the technology or the scientific language necessarily to express it as we do today. But now that we have those things, I feel like truth has been, and I think always should be based on what is observable, testable, repeatable. And I think that truth has always been based on those things, but we are always limited in our search for the truth by the technology we have, the education that we have in our society, the problems in society that keep us worrying about our survival rather than actually learning the truth. And so truth is a very tricky thing, but it's a word that is thrown around a lot in Wise Blood by Hazel Motes and others in this story. But it's this insane idea of normalcy I wanted to come back to, that which is also a sense of, when people say like the word common sense, right? There's supposed to be like this idea of common sense that supersedes even the search for truth itself. It's like, well, yeah, like there's a reason we have all these bureaucracies, so and so, but we just got to use common sense. That's just one example. But this common sense that we have in America is based on a absolutely insane and actually rather complex idea of normalcy. And I'll give you an example. I'm a homeowner, and today I was looking out at my lawn, and I'm like, my lawn looks like shit. So I go out and I mow it, but I still have all these weeds everywhere, and so I'm like, all right, I got to think about some way to treat these. So I have this mix of like vinegar and stuff, whatever. I went around, we'll see if it works. Okay. But I don't want to bring myself to put these like ridiculous chemicals, these pesticides or whatever, on my lawn that I know that, most, if not all of my neighbors do. And it's just like, how have we come to a point where we can't bear to live among weeds? And we have these perfect green lawns. This is what I'm talking about when I talk about this crazy sense of normalcy, and in a place where supposedly we cherish freedom and independence. All the houses look the same. You barely can distinguish one suburban neighborhood from another. One town is just like every other, as Hazel Motes discovers at the end. And Wise Blood, what I like, it's just, sorry to have a whole existential crisis here over a freaking lawn, but that is the kind of thing that Wise Blood does. It digs its hands into the insane idea of normalcy that we've had, not just today, but for at least 70 years, if not before. This being set in the late 40s and written or published in the early 50s. It's still with us today, and it's so interesting to see that in the book, and it's inspiring. It's like, well, maybe I could write about my existential crisis over my lawn, and that could be in a piece of fiction spoken by a character, right? And that's why I say this has been like the most inspiring piece of fiction about America that I've read, for a long time. I don't, maybe ever. I hate to. I don't really care about saying what my favorite books are too much anymore. It's just they inspire me in a moment, and they inspire me the way they do. I don't feel the need to qualify and rank and stuff like that. But Wise Blood does find our lunacy in all these little things in common places. It doesn't need this shocking ending to deliver it, and that's why I don't even really feel much need to talk about the ending right now. I think there's some interesting things to be said about it, for sure, especially with the woman that Hazel Motes is renting from, and their sort of interesting relationship at the end where, spoiler I guess, the woman while she has sort of like bad intentions toward him, she wants to get the money that he's making off the government for free because she thinks of this as her tax money. This mentality, you know, people all over the US still have today. They imagine that their tax money is just being handed out left and right to like undeserving people everywhere, when really, you know, most of it's just going to like making weapons and making sure executives at insurance companies are still getting rich. In, you know, in car companies. But it's like there's this mentality that's been with us just for 70 years. It's like, in a place that cherishes freedom and independence, you'd think that our minds would have explored some different avenues, but nope, it's the same stuff. It's the same stuff. And it's wrong too. It's just it's a wrong view of the world. But also at the ending, that her sort of bad intentions toward Hazel Motes actually become possibly good. There's this little shining light of like goodness that emerges from her on the very last page that I think is interesting. And of course, I'm going to read this book again, Wise Blood. It was so good. What should I read next from Flannery O'Connor? Let me know what you think, and I would love to read more of her. I don't know if I'm going to read her entire collected works, but I would love a suggestion as to what would be good to read next. She's got a lot of short stories, and anything that's in this collected works from Library of America, I would probably be ready to jump into any moment. But otherwise, I'm going to keep working on Rachel Carson's C trilogy, as well as a few other books I've got going on that I've mentioned in previous videos. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Mike Reads the World.